Coming up on today's show, Dan Quinn, is he staying in Dallas? It appears so. Sean Payton, is he out of the race for the Broncos head coaching gig? Well, he himself touched on that, so we'll look at that. Plus, is it DeMeco Ryans' job to lose at this point? We continue to break down all the latest Broncos head coaching news and rumors here at the Broncos Breakdown with yours truly, Matthew Peterson. So let's get started with this on Dan Quinn. Tom Pelissero tweeted out yesterday that Cowboys DC Dan Quinn informed interested teams that he is staying in Dallas. Quinn was a top candidate for the Cardinals head coaching job and also interviewed with the Colts and the Broncos, but his heart is in Dallas and he wants to win a Super Bowl there, a.k.a. he's waiting for Mike McCarthy to get fired and he can take over. He's not, waiting to win a Super Bowl as a DC. He's waiting for McCarthy, that fat motherfucker, to fuck it up and, take over. But that was really mean. I don't know why I went for Mike McCarthy's head like that. Moving on, though. We did have this from Mark Mask, who covers the NFL for the Washington Post. And it's kind of an interesting tweet. He said, the Panthers are no longer an option for Sean Payton. They hired Frank Reich. And there was an issue with Payton's interview with the Broncos. Payton liked the idea of coaching Russell Wilson and having that defense, but fears a potential power struggle with a member of the ownership group. Dun, dun, dun. So a lot of drama was stirred up from this tweet. Fingers were getting pointed. Some were saying, nope, this is just the Broncos not being interested in Sean Payton and Sean Payton kind of putting out fake news to cover his rear end. Well, all that went to bed about 4 hours later when Sean Payton himself quote tweeted that tweet and said, zero truth to this. We had a great visit and Broncos ownership was fantastic. So the idea of the Broncos ownership maybe pushing out some candidates and not being very warm, fuzzy, and welcoming, at least in Sean Payton's own words, is not the truth here. So what is the latest on Sean Payton, right? The former New Orleans Saints head coach. Well, the rumblings coming out of Denver right now are that the Broncos are kind of on the out right now for Sean Payton. Have not scheduled a second interview with him. Cannot confirm or deny that's because of a hunting trip, but that's another video. Now, Payton has not received a second interview from any team yet, which to me tells me maybe these teams aren't that interested in giving up a first pick for Sean Payton. And it's more and more likely he'll just go back to Fox and stay on TV and wait for the Cowboys job or the Chargers job to open up, or maybe even an outside chance of going back to New Orleans. Now, my question is this. Right now, it feels like Denver is really zeroed in on DeMeco Ryans. What if DeMeco Ryans takes the Houston Texans job, which we'll spend the second half of today's show looking at? Is plan B Sean Payton? And does Sean Payton want to be someone's backup plan? Because if not, I am terrified of the prospect of David Shaw being plan B. If DeMeco Ryans goes to H-Town, Sean Payton stays at Fox, and David Shaw is sitting there like, I'm all you got. Let's do this thing. Now, the Broncos interview list is starting to get whittled down, right? And then there were 5. No more Jim Harbaugh. He was the first one to fall. Then Dan Quinn went back to Dallas, or stays with Dallas. Sean Payton, I'm going to put an X next to. Kind of feels like that's running thin, but not completely closed on that front. And then that leaves us Evero, which I don't think Denver wants to do. I think they'd rather have him back as a DC. 1, they probably don't believe he's ready after 1 year as a coordinator to be a head coach. 2, they might like it if they bring him back as a DC. He gets hired as a head coach for another team next year, and they get some comp picks. DeMeco Ryans, Jim Caldwell, Raheem Morris, and then there's David Shaw. So with the idea of Sean Payton being out of the mix, that does bring one big benefit, and that is the Broncos all of a sudden have their first-round pick back, because that felt like it was a foregone conclusion that would be going to New Orleans. So if you are excited for some Broncos mock drafts, now that it feels like Denver will be on the clock in round 1 this year, like today's video. If we get 300 likes, I'll do a mock draft next week, but I want to get a good pulse of the fan base right now if we're ready for mock draft season. So if you're ready, hit that thumbs up icon. Now, next up on the show, I want to talk about DeMeco Ryans, the front runner right now, the favorite, if you will, to be the next Broncos head coach, because it feels like there is a bit of a race between the Broncos and the Texans right now. So Denver and Houston are the top 2 teams vying for DeMeco Ryans, and we might have a city off. We might have a duel of what is a better job, the Broncos job or the Texans job? So we're going to break down the pros and cons to both these jobs in a minute. But first, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Athletic Greens. Now, I take AG1 by Athletic Greens literally every day. And you can get comprehensive and convenient daily nutrition at athleticgreens.com/chatsports. I recently gave AG1 a try because I hated taking pills and vitamins, and I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. I take AG1 in the morning, and it makes me feel ready to take on my day. It really helps with me starting my day on the right foot and getting into a healthier lifestyle. I start the day with making one great choice, AG1, and more healthy decisions then follow. Now, covering my nutritional basis for the day literally couldn't be easier, which is why I trust Athletic Greens. I just mix one small scoop of AG1 with water and drink it first thing each morning. Done. I also love that it costs literally less than $3 a day, which is pretty good if you ask me. It's a really effective daily habit with the highest quality sourced ingredients, so win-win. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. So go to athleticgreens.com/chatsports. That's athleticgreens.com/chatsports. Check it out. The link is in the comments and the description of today's show. Moving on, the better head coaching job. A duel between the Broncos and the Texans for DeMeco Ryans' heart, potentially. Let's break this down bit by bit, starting with ownership. I think the nod goes to Denver, right? I think everyone would rather have the current Broncos ownership over the McNairs. Plus, I think it's also worth reminding everyone, and we talked about this on yesterday's show, DeMeco Ryans sued the Texans not that long ago, in 2016. One president removed. So I think that maybe there could be some bad blood still between between DeMeco Ryans and the big figureheads. It's not the exact same anymore. It's a new GM. It's a new head coach. Rob McNair passed away, so it's his wife taking over. So maybe all those guys are out that he had beef with, but I don't know. Maybe they still linger a little bit. Now, the next head coaching comparison is draft picks, and that's got to go to Houston. They have 2 first-round draft picks this year, one of which is their own, and it's number 2. So if DeMeco Ryans wants to go to a place where he can build through the draft, yeah, Houston is the place to do that. I don't think Denver can really make much of an argument otherwise. Right now, the Texans are slated to pick 2nd and 12th, or 2nd and 13th, 2nd and 12th, and the Broncos are picking maybe 31 if the 49ers continue to win, which would be 2 straight years of that happening for the Broncos. Now, when it comes to the roster, I think it's the Broncos roster. I know these two teams were not good last year, but if you poll 32 GMs and say, hey, which roster do you think is better right now? They're going to go with Denver, right? They're going to go with the roster that has Patrick Surtain, Justin Simmons, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, a lot of other key players on it as well, versus the Texans roster, which is young, and it may get to that point, but does DeMeco Ryans want to wait around and babysit, or does he want to jump into something that's a little bit more ready? Now, the next element I want to compare is free agency, right? Where is DeMeco Ryans going to be more successful in free agency? I think Denver. Now, this one's open to debate, I think. The other 3, I think, are pretty, cut and dry. But we did just see the Broncos spend a lot of money on Russell Wilson, a lot of money on a new field for just one game. You're telling me if DeMeco Ryans goes into Greg Penner's office in the offseason and says, I need this player to be successful, Greg Penner's going to say no? If you had to pick free agency where you'd rather be as a coach and GM combo, I'm going to go Denver in my opinion. Now, the final one is going to get some people upset. Just city overall, like where the coach would rather be, I'm going to go Houston, not because I believe Houston's a better city than Denver, but DeMeco Ryans played for the Houston Texans, has a long connection to the city of Houston. His wife is from Houston. So I think if you ask DeMeco Ryans which city he prefers more, he'd probably pick Houston. This is not me saying I think Houston's better than Denver. No, I disagree. Houston is a really big city that has got a cloud of fog above it and pollution. But I think DeMeco Ryans would pick the city that he started his NFL career with, his wife is from, he's got connections back there, over a relatively brand new city. Now, if you want DeMeco Ryans to be the Broncos' next head coach, subscribe and we can beat out the Texans. really what I'm saying here is I don't want David Shaw. And I'm not, crazy about DeMeco Ryans being head coach. He wasn't my number one guy, but he's way better than David Shaw. And this podcast has become an anti-David Shaw Denver Broncos coach. So you know what? If we don't want to get to plan B or plan C, we want to avoid DeMeco Ryans going to Houston and thus Denver having to go down the well, hit that button and subscribe today. To DeMeco Ryans, which I know you're watching right now, here's my pitch to you. Don't look at Denver and go, I don't want to sync with Russell Wilson. I'll be out in a year or two like the last head coach was. I don't think that'll be the case. I believe the Broncos ownership is assuring their candidates of, hey, we know that before we got here, they traded for Russell Wilson. It has not worked out. It could still work out, right? If Russell Wilson's good next year with a new head coach, are any of us going to be blown away? No. A lot of old receipts, I'm going to get clowned, and that's fine. But I think that the current head coaching pool candidacy knows they're not going to be tied to Russell Wilson, and if he does not play well, then they're going to get fired as a result. Otherwise, you're not going to get any head coach. You get the best ownership in terms of money and wealth. The Waltons are richer than the second, third, and fourth NFL owners combined. So there's that. Plus, a much more stable organization. I know Denver just fired Hackett less than a year into the job, but Houston's not much better. They fired David Culley after one season and Lovie Smith after one season. They are a much more turmoil organization than the Broncos. So I think if you ask any sort of NFL exec or whatever, hey, what front office, what organization, which, franchise does it better, top to bottom? Denver or Houston? They're going to pick Denver. So let's talk more about Russell Wilson, because I think DeMeco Ryans and all other head coaches are wondering, hey, if I come to this job and Russell Wilson sucks, how much time do I have to spend with him? Because I don't want to go down that sinking ship. Now, the dead cap hit, meaning money Denver has to spend no matter what if he's on or off the roster for Russell Wilson, this year's $107 million. He's not going anywhere. They're not going to pay him $107 million to not play football for them. In 2024, it's $85 million. Now, the biggest dead cap number eaten in NFL history was Matt Ryan with the Falcons. It was just below $50 million. This would double it. So it probably seems like Denver is absolutely stuck with Russell Wilson for all of 2023. 2024, maybe they would eat it. It would be the second, it would be the largest dead cap hit, doubling the previous one. But we are talking about the richest owners in the NFL who want to win and not stand by and watch a team lose. Now, after that, 2025, that number is not, unfeasible, less than 50. So at minimum 2 years for Russell Wilson, for whoever this next head coach is taking the job here. Now, I am curious, what's the better job? We asked this on yesterday's show. I want to bring it back because I saw lots of Texans fans on Twitter saying that it's Houston by a mile. And I don't think so. I know I'm biased, but I am going to go with the Broncos. Let me know what you think the better head coaching position is. Now, before we sign off, it is holiday party tonight here at Chat Sports, and we are getting a party bus, and all of us are driving up to Choctaw Casino in Oklahoma. So if you are a gambling man and you love to spend some time at the tables, let me know what your favorite table game is, what number you like to bet on in roulette. I'm a sucker for craps. Once you learn craps, you'll never go a different direction in the casino, and I love playing roulette. I never understand how people can play the electronic games, like the slot machines. I feel like those are all just guaranteed to be rigged, but what do I know? I appreciate everyone for tuning into today's show. We're going to sign off and see you all later with more Broncos head coaching news and rumors.